Hello, everyone. Uh, Thank you for joining. And Eve confirmation through the chat. I would really appreciate. So, can you hear me, guys? So, Rita, can you hear me? Thank you very much. We've got a confirmation. So, uh, this is a new technology, so we are trying. Um, of YouTube sharing or co-hosting. So I'm in London and Rita is in Nairobi. So for the difficulties in terms of the teething problems, kindly accept our apologies. And now I'll just hand over to Rita to continue with the program.
Okay. Thanks, Sam. So as he's mentioned, I was just telling myself that my 2023 goal has to start with being more conversant with all the different kind of technologies that we have. But I'm happy to be here. As he has said, my name is Ritah Mwangi, and I am a Commonwealth Shared Scholar from the year 2019-2020. I went to the University of Edinburgh and I took a master's in Africa and International Development. I feel like that addresses my entire Commonwealth background. I am no expert and have not been very active, in keeping up with the trends with Commonwealth, apart from, the usual social media and WhatsApp here and there and the annual meetings. But I still feel that a lot that I will be able to share today will be very relatable to you. I find that a lot of people that are applying for scholarships are people who are not only applying to one particular scholarship, but are people who are applying to probably their second, third, fourth. And so this could be very good transferable information for your next application, not only Commonwealth, but every other scholarship that is open. I'm specifically going to talk about the shared scholarship because that is what I went through, and that's what I know about. Yeah, and I'm sure Sam has covered some bits of the scholarship. I'm sure you as an applicant have already gone through, the general requirements, the overviews of it, the eligibility criteria. You have looked at that and you have found yourself eligible to be able to apply for it this year. I'd also like to mention before I start that I found the scholarship journey to be like, I don't know. I remember some people asking me, um, I was working at a place at that point, and some people were like, is this the actual degree? Because it was so much work into it. before you actually see the fruits. And sometimes I like to think of it as a long-term strategy. So sometimes when you're listening to this, because I'm sure you'll not only be listening to this one video, I'm sure you've listened to Sam's Shevning's video and probably a couple of others he will do, including for PhD. It's good to think of your scholarship journey as a small part of your entire long-term career journey. And once you align it there, then you'll be able to get rid of that that rejection kind of bug where you're just applying for the sake of applying. It will be good for you to listen today with the intention of, am I ready, and not what exactly do I have to do. So it's listen, assess yourself as an evaluator, and then decide whether this is something that you'll be able to do. If there are any issues, please feel free to write on the chat and we'll go on. Because I'm using my mobile phone, then I'd prepared a presentation which I can't actually present. So unfortunately, I've printed it out. Not very environmentally friendly, but we'll have to do. Um, so the first thing that I wanted to talk about
Rita,
is yes.
would you kindly like tell us um, what degree you had done before, uh, just to let them know that you could actually change your career through the scholarship, like the kind of direction in your career and what you do on a daily basis.
Yeah, definitely. I can do that. So something that's going to also show up in my essays, because I was hoping that a part of this will reflect in my essays. But as Sam has rightly put it, I my first degree was in finance, so a Bachelor of Commerce in finance. And I say this a lot when I'm talking about my first degree, is that being good at something does not mean you want to do it for the rest of your life. So I was good at it, but when I settled into the practice of it, it just wasn't working for me and I needed to find something different. So I feel like I'll be able to address that in the essay questions. But yes, you can be able to move from anything to anything. It's just like I mentioned, all this is a strategy. If you think about it as a long-term strategy as opposed to just sending in the applications, then you'll take your time to fill in the gaps based on where you are. And that includes for people who could even have a lower grade point than the eligibility would demand. True, the sifting and the screening process will be looking for applicants who have a second upper, a first class degree. But because this is a shared scholarship, then it's up to the university to send their nominations um, to the committee. And that means that if your achievements are really outstanding post your, let's say, 2-2 score, then there could be a chance that you could be nominated.
Could you clarify that a tutu is a second lower?
Yes, it's a second lower. Yeah. Okay. So I'm sure you've gone through the themes that the Commonwealth is supporting for the year and what the Commonwealth really works under. And it's always important to align yourself to the theme of the organization you're looking for funding from. It definitely goes without saying. Moving from that, so I was under the promoting global prosperity theme. And moving from that, then um, you find that they also try to marry a lot of the SDGs and then trickle down to the national priorities for your year. So it's up to you to do your homework for your particular country. What's your country trying to do? Because yes, your country could be trying to, I don't know, get into robotics, which is a good plan, but is that their immediate need? So for somebody else who would be trying to align themselves to a current need that probably the government of the day, or the government of the day is trying to work on, say for instance in the next 2-3 years, then the question of what you will do when you come back is more relevant to you than to someone else who is looking 20-30 years. 20-30 years is important because it's still here, but the small steps that you take in the short term are what guide what we'll look at in the long term. So how do we apply? I don't know about you, but when I was applying, I was juggling applications from different schools. I don't know. There are some of you who from from Sam's previous videos, I've seen asking questions about not only the UK but Netherlands, US, other European countries. And so some of you are not even just dealing with eligibility criteria of one country. You're probably doing multiples, and I applaud you. I don't think I had that kind of thing. So when I focused on a country, I narrowed down on the UK, and I narrowed down on as a very similar theme across. So I applied to one university, multiple courses which were offering similar things, and I applied to one university or universities which could all be under different scholarship schemes, because most scholarships, apart from, I think, for instance, say the MasterCard, they want you to have, at the end of the day, to be able to secure your own admission. So they don't work in reverse, that you first apply to the scholarship, then when you get it, you're like, huh, what next? They're not helping you that much. They're just relying on you to be able to um, put in your application in the first instance to the school, and as you process, so these two things are going to go simultaneously, and most likely you're going to get your admission for the school before you could get feedback on the scholarship. In that sense, then it's up to you to make your work as easy as possible. So narrow down on a theme of what you want to work in, and narrow down on the courses that could support as many scholarships as possible. I assume if you're looking for funding, then you're looking for funding. Are we back? Yeah. I'm not exactly sure where I can hear myself.
Down to you.
Okay. I think I'll, yeah. Like, there's a bit of echo, Sam.
Not from my end. Maybe are you using two devices?
No idea. Um, okay. Okay, fine. So I was just saying that sometimes it's good to apply to a couple of scholarships. So sorry, to a couple of courses that are supported by various scholarships, so that you don't have to be in a place where you're juggling too many applications, maybe 10 and above. You're trying to do. Oh yeah, there's still an echo. No idea why. Sam, are you able to mute yourself?
Yeah, I can. How is it now?
I think it's, yeah. No, there's still an echo. I totally can't tell what happened. Could you type on the chat? Because I can't hear what you're saying.
Sorry, I was just saying you can confirm whether the echo is there after I mute. Maybe you can speak after I mute
Okay.
in a second, and then we confirm whether the echo is still there.
Okay. Yeah, I think we're good. So as I was saying, that take the chance to do like a comparison. Check out, let's say, course A. That course is supported by scholarship A, B, C, D, because even from the perspective of the applicant, you don't want to burn out by the time you're sending out all these applications. Make sure that you have all your supporting documentation. I'd like not to go through that because I'm sure you have already done it, as well as assessed your own eligibility. But something that I'd want to go through is your application, just the actual application as it appears on. Yeah, thank you for letting us know that it stopped. It was a bit disturbing. And I'm just now to the application form. So um it boils down. So when we're talking about, they'll ask you about the courses that you've done. Don't shy away from saying literally as much as the maximum word count can support. My application was based on, I will tell you that I had a theme of health and partnership. So my application was based on the theme around partnership and the theme on health. Like if you read it, the one thing that you took away from my application was that I was partnership oriented and that I was a health based person. And so what that means is that every single sales training I did, every single business development training I did allowed me to prove that. So I didn't shy away from putting those certifications there. There are people who, from their earlier years, from undergrad or through their exposure at work, they have been able to put up publications. And that is really, really important for your application. Don't shy away from getting access to those publications. There are people who, probably the company has the rights, but talk to your bosses, talk to the people who are directly responsible for you, and see whether you could tag everybody in it, but also be included in it, because it's really, really important. It helps you to critically assess every single prize that you've gotten over the years. You know, even for just your own growth, and put it there. Then they'd require you to start listing things like your employment history, and that is when now my application starts shaping up, in the sense that I have left finance and I've gotten into development. So, like I mentioned, the first firm I worked for right after uni was it was a basic accountant job. So that is finance, but I'm not pursuing a master's degree in finance. And immediately when I looked at what the scholarships in the area I was working, I wanted to go into look like, then that put a pause for me in the first instant. So I decided I'm not going to apply for 2 years. I'm going to build my career history in this sector. So that's why you'll probably look at your career history at this point and see that probably you don't stand a chance, and commit to probably a year, the next year, of fine tuning what your application should look like the next year. You take a step back, you hold off from applying this year, but with the goal of next year, these are going to be my deliverables. These are going to be the achievements that I'm going to place in my application, and you work towards them. That means going to your bosses and saying, "Oh, I know I'm handling this portfolio, but do you think I could be added onto? Do you think I can help in this agriculture project?" Say, for instance, if you're looking for agriculture scholarship, like there are some here. So you find that you will need to assess yourself critically before you allow someone else into your space to read that, because some of our experiences are all over the place in terms of themes. By the time the evaluator is going through your last essay, they totally can't remember what you said in your first essay. But I found that when you build your essay through a theme, like, just this person is A, B, C, D. It helps that person understand where you're going, where you're coming from. They can almost even preempt what's going to be in the next statement. And that gives them an easy time when they're assessing it. So for me, I moved from finance to development. And it was a good opportunity for me to explain. I'm confident to say I was working for a pharmaceutical company, and I felt like I wasn't doing the most in the impact of it. There was impact in the work I was doing because I was helping, I was in the support role of the organization. But I really wanted, I wanted something else, and that was not it. And so that's what I explained pretty much, that I was here. I was good at it. I didn't mind it, but I wanted to do more impact work than the support roles and the back end of the finance. So that's how you marry every single thing. All the experiences that you've gone through, they don't take away from anything. I tell you for a fact now, I don't struggle with budgets. I don't struggle with project management when it comes to budgets because of my finance background. So that means for you, it's not anything that negates the whole situation just because you have come from one side. A lot of this, you just have to find the transferable experience and link it to your scholarship application. Um, your referees, these are people who will make or break, your application. When you've left a company, sometimes some companies give you something as vague as a certificate of clearance, that Ritah Mwangi worked in XX between period September this to August this. These were their duties. They have given back all that we had given to them while they were working here, and we are all good. That doesn't work. So when you're reaching out to someone like that, then it won't work. Your referees are also not your uncles, your aunties, um, people who are not very fair to you. I will openly say that at the point when I was doing my application, I messed up on one of my referees, but I messed up at a very early stage when I was applying for one of my first scholarships. And I remember this referee was a person I was working under, and the nature of work that we were doing dictated that sometimes they could be, just teething problems here and there. And when something didn't go right, that particular person, very confident to say this, called the school to withdraw the application, my application. So you need to really evaluate, check out who you're putting down as your reference. Somebody who knows you, somebody who wants the best for you, somebody who understands your journey. So that's the other thing that helped made me hold back on my application, because you could be that in the last 2 3 years of your career, you have worked really hard, but at your desk you've not networked, you've not built relationships that can translate into this kind of a reference letter that comes genuinely from the heart and is very impactful. You don't want to have the best language that represents your essay and then have a referee who's not able to articulate exactly what you're hoping to do in life. So it's up to you right now to decide whether you'll take the next year getting professional mentorship and having people who will understand your goal. But that's besides the point. So your referee is very important. What they say, and especially what they don't say, becomes the question marks that the evaluator has. So make sure that you are in whatever capacity. Try and find an academic person in your circle. Try and find a professional person in your circle. Try and find, your mentor in your circle, and a professional one, not your not your church mentor. It could be good, but yeah, those kind of things. So just try and make sure your referee could make or break this application. So make sure that they're a person who is just not all talk. I know people who would have helped me, who would have written that application letter like yesterday, but I wouldn't have trusted them to send it because they don't give you back the letter to upload. Then some in some scholarships they ask the referee themselves to upload it. So you need someone that you're going to trust. You can't do the entire heavy lifting and then the person that you're dealing with is not able to follow through. So make sure that you select these people wisely and you keep them updated on your journey, that even when they are called, they know. If they are ever called, they know about what to expect. The last part of this is the development impact, and this is where I'll probably use the time to touch on my own application. And one of the things that they're calling it is, they call it just development impact, because that's what you're trying to do. They're trying to assess how do your ambitions marry into the goal of the scholarship and marry into the future of you coming back to your country and working, because that's one of the conditions that you have to fulfill. So these issues are not, there is no country which is in isolation. These issues feed into the wider national, it feeds into the regional, it feeds into the international scene. So you have to work really hard to put your points in that sense. And they have to work towards your theme, the theme that you are under with the CSC, that is. So in this sense, I look at it and I'm going to personally go through what I put out as my application. Um, so when I look at it, it's like I looked at it like a scholar article. Not in my opinion. I think this is what should happen in my country where health is concerned. If you can, please include facts and figures from a quotable source, just the way you would do for your assignment, you know. So for me, I was talking about UNICEF's finding on how much people live on, and I was trying to link health and insurance, because my experiences at work were health related. There were health projects that I was working on. So I needed to show that the impact that I'm trying to solve is going to feed under, for instance, in my opinion, in that particular application that I was doing, the universal health coverage goals. This feeds into an SDG, this feeds into the continental level, and this feeds even to my own national country priorities at the time. So you quote scholarly articles, not your opinions, not what you think. Quote scholarly articles for this and give it in a very clear, concise manner. That could be the first part of your application. Then explain what you do currently that helps you see this issue as such an issue. Because if you are clearly addressing the issues that you want to go and study for, then what's the point? You have to show where the gap lies. And sometimes the gap lies in your own sectoral experiences and in your own workplace, where possibly without these masters, then you can't advance to the next, you can't get into the policy team, which you want to get into, to craft better policies for the personal things that you're going through, for the workplace related things that you're going through. And that's how this applies. So everything joins onto the wider theme, nationally, regionally, internationally. It joins onto the CSC themes, and it joins into things like the SDGs. So try and work around that. So talk about the course. That particular course that you want to do, how does it help you address the things that you're saying? You've already found facts and figures that support your argument. You've already laid your argument. You've already said what you do and presented a gap on it. Talk about how this particular course in that school, because you're talking to what is it called? You're talking to the school to be able to nominate you. So you're pitching yourself to that school. And when you're pitching yourself, then that's what you're telling. You're literally just telling the school that this course that you're offering is exactly what I need to be able to start addressing one and two. Then now explain that the scholarship will also help you. Reason being, probably the funding, probably the networks, probably you, yeah, figure out your reason for why you would need that particular scholarship to be able to take you through that. Then link it to what you will do after you're back, because now you have you have found the data, you have talked about your current experiences and identified a gap. You have then gone to say the rest about how you're going to address this and how that course helps you. So when this course has helped you, what will you do? Put it in the outcomes that you hope to achieve. Put it in time frames. Don't just leave it hanging that one day I'll change the policy on health in Kenya. I'm that girl. No, we need some more, some more, I'll first do this that will help me do this, then lastly I will do this, because you're still feeding into upon my return. That is very short term, 1, 2, 3 years into that. And then lastly, you'll start talking about when you come and then you do exactly what you've said that you're going to do, how are we going to measure that impact? you know so it's just not about saying a bunch of things, but how do we measure that impact? And that brings us to the objectives that you are currently going through. So you have to link each objective that you have to how the program will support both the Commonwealth program and the course that you're studying. And that's just on you to figure out how all this is marrying. Then you will move from the objectives that you will have and try to show impact. Speak in impact language. I don't know, probably Google if you have to. But then, you have talked about the short term, the kind of short term. You have alluded to it. But now they want a career plan in the next 5 years. You know, in this whole application, the emphasis has been you. What did you study? What did you do? Where did you go? Which years? What time? It's now time to start showing impact in terms of people. You've done a really good job about talking about I did this, I did this. And this is the point where, as much as you will talk about what you want to do, you will also try to marry it to how you're supposed to do it. I've done a couple of these sessions very informally with people on my LinkedIn, in just general spaces. I talk about this a lot. However, I was shocked to go through my own application and to find that I had said that after one of the plans is to make sure that I mentor other people through the process. And I shape, because now I know what is expected. I will shape their thinking towards exactly what they need to do, so that you're not all over the place saying everything. You kind of just, I save you the trouble of having to go through everything. And I was shocked. I was really, really shocked to see that part, because maybe that's a part I said that looked very, very glossy. I have done it coincidentally. If it was to be measured, yes, I have done it, not in a very structured form as this, but in the essence of it, I have done it, but I said it, and now it's actually happening. So you start seeing how you're going to work and link what that means. For me, I'm Kenyan. I come from Kenya. I was coming back to Kenya. So what was what was my impact going to look like in terms of my Kenyan people? Who exactly would I be trying to help? Is it the devolved government? Is it the common Kenyan, who we call the common Mwananchi? Who was I targeting? Was my study supposed to help directly the government at the national level, or how would it have trickled down to if how would the networks I create in the UK help? Some is perfect example here. I met some through a WhatsApp group. that was for, I think, students who are studying in the UK and the wider Commonwealth, Chevening, Commonwealth, that kind of a thing. And I think even Europe. I'm not exactly. Yeah, I think so. And during that time, I just knew him as the guy who talks about some of the agriculture development stuff. He's been passionate about it a while. And after that, I started connecting with people. So it's not only the networks that you create when you're in that facility, the school, but it's the wider networks that you create. Sam and I didn't even meet while we were both in the UK during the same year, but we met later when we came back. But network is network. And now we have the ease of virtual network that you can still cultivate and make good of. So use all that to your advantage. Use that now we're such an interconnected world and put it there. And then talk about, you know, every other thing that you have, but try to marry it down to exactly who you want to help and how it's going to impact the common person. Your long-term career goals is what we'll move to next. And when you're looking at this, we're just trying to assess exactly how all these things you've said are adding up to what you want to do. So it's very ambitious. I wanted to become cabinet secretary of some portfolio. You know, I was reading this and I was just laughing. And I was chatting a friend of mine and saying, "Can you believe I wanted to become this?" I mean, I the directions have changed, but still I'm still looking to get into public service, just in case those of you who will be interviewing me at some point at some later stage mark this day. But just to say that this thing, everything that you've written has formed the foundation and the stepping stones for what you're going to write in your long-term career plan. So you cannot be writing that I want to do this, and this. And then after that, it will form probably the foundation of you being the first person to go to Mars, yet you are helping Kenyans find healthcare solutions. It's a long term plan, yes, but it does not relate to any of the things that you've said. So just follow your own trail and understand it and move from there. As we wind down, we'll go to the personal statement. And this is very personal. I I had gone through scholarship applications. I had gotten frustrated. I'll be very open to say that at the time I was applying for this Commonwealth, I think this was like my 10th. I was tired. I wasn't really trying to be very innovative. And so I wrote my own story and the story that had affected my life. I've always been passionate about health and about health insurance. And at that point, I just turned the magic age where they kick you off your parents' insurance. And I was feeling the pinch because once you're I think 21 to 24, then you're not in the insurance scheme. But if you're in school, then they can still allow you to be in it. And at this point, my student ID had expired. I was working for an employer who didn't provide any health care apart from the statutory national health insurance that's paid, which does a bit more, but my experience was that I couldn't access any specialized treatment. The ease, the hospital I was used to, no, I had to go and I don't know, register to I don't know what hospital. It was very awful. I was also not being paid much to be able to afford exactly what my father's insurance was being able to accord me at that time. And so I was desperately, I had something to say about the healthcare system in Kenya at that point. I had a lot to say. And so I personalized it. So personal statement can get as personal as it can, but don't go crying there, like in a very professional tone. And so mine was, I started with findings from a study of the Kenya Household Health Expenditure and Utilization Survey, which had estimated at that time that about 20% of Kenyans' population, or something that was equivalent to 9 million at that time, experienced illness. And out of those, 7.8 seek care. And out of those 7.8, 120,000 seek specialized treatment. So between the point where you are seeking medical attention to when you're treated or the diagnosis happens, there's one common factor. Leave the doctors, leave the locations, leave everything. Even to leave your house to get to that hospital, it just requires one thing: money. And I was frustrated because now there wasn't this inflow of money. And that means that for me already, for low income families, there are a lot of families who the breadwinners walk to work every day. So you can imagine when someone is clearly sick, they're going to be waiting until the last minute. They don't even have transport to get to these places. And even now, paying for the treatment itself becomes such a challenge. Then I personalized it to my own experience. And I said that when I was growing up, I'm from a middle income family. My parents have always had insurance, and I've always joy ridden on that insurance until I became a grown up and had to own my choices. And I'm here, and the government is not offering anything substantial. I'm feeling I'm feeling the pain of this insurance. Yet I am far much better than so many millions of Kenyans at that point who even transport to hospital was a problem. I still could access medical care. I still could get hospitalization just in a public hospital. They're not bad, but my preference would have been where I want to be, you know? But there's somebody who, even that public hospital was inaccessible to them. And the difference between you slumping into more poverty is your health. So as much as as we were talking at that time about, economic development, economic recovery, even now post in a post-COVID time, you need healthy people to be able to do that. And healthy people are people who are diagnosed early, people who make it to hospital, people who are treated on time and who get the right kind of treatment. But some of these people never stay to a hospital or won't get to a hospital in good time because of the money factor. And that is how I just personalized it and broke it down to I have access, some level of access that allows me to keep alive and keep healthy, to keep working. But that is not the reality, or was not the reality of so many Kenyans at the time. Because the minimum payment of 500 Kenyan shillings was still a burden to a lot of people. There was also very low literacy levels on what NHIF could actually do for you at that time, which is the hospital insurance fund. So when you personalize your statement, you come marrying it to all the things that you have said, your long term, your short term, your everything, and you just move with it. And they talked about I remember there's a part there when they were talking about, the experiences that have shaped you. And at that point, I deviated a little from health, and I talked about just limited infrastructure. I went to school in a public university, but under a private program. And still, every beginning of semester, there was a teacher strike, a student strike that affected learning, not too much to paralyze it, but for 2 weeks or 3 weeks. And so that student support was not there. The bond that you create with your lecturers wasn't there for me. And I needed an institution that would be able to do that for me. And so some of the challenges that you could talk about are just current present day challenges. You don't have to think too out of the box about, world shaping, reinventing the wheel. No, just talk about your experiences. You've gone through public university in your school. You don't want to be thinking about carrying a chair to class when you could just get to class and study, or use that time to actually relax that you're alert half the class. But if you have to carry a chair 30 minutes to your class, then you're tired by the time you get to class. You really don't want to study. So that's how you marry all these experiences. So for me, as we even now totally wrap up, my voluntary experience that year, I tried to marry it to health. And your voluntary experience, yes, you can be strategic about it by probably the professional organizations that you can join or whatever. But for me, it was sheer coincidence that these were my experiences. But they also married into health. And by the time I was finishing with my application, I knew that if somebody gets nothing from me, if they met me, they'd say, "Oh, you're the health girl." And that's all you need to be remembered. That's all you need, probably for somebody. I don't know how they assess them in terms of, do they put them aside and look at them again? Do they just grade them as they go? But it leaves a lasting impression. And throughout my application, from the minute I start talking about my personal statement and my impact, then the person is even preempting, "Oh, so about voluntary experience, what are they going to write about health now?" And then you hit them with another health thing. So I'm not saying that you have to restrict yourself to just health or one particular theme, but I realized that the applications, my applications which made it to the next level, were harmonized. The one where I had done experience, I don't know, done what in a children's home. Then the other one, I was working on education projects in the office. Then the other one, I wanted to join the parliamentary committee to deal with health. They didn't go too far because at some point somebody lost the train of thought. And this person, you need to build up your case. So it's a case that you're building. It's up to you to build it well. It helps you if you can be able to put your theme across. So I think I have possibly addressed everything that there is to address. I am on LinkedIn as Ritah Mwangi. You can send me a message there asking specific questions, very specific questions. But I would ask you to put yourself in the shoes of the evaluator and go through your essays and ask yourself, if I was evaluating this person, do I even understand what they're saying? Does it make sense? My family knew my applications by heart because sometimes my mom works in the business sector. So she had no working knowledge of what happens in the development sector. But sometimes I needed to run through my application with someone who is outside the scope to check whether they get what I'm saying. And if I lost my application and my mom was called and asked, "What did Rita write?" She said she would have been able to articulate it. That just goes to say, my mom is very smart, by the way, just saying, but that just goes to say that sometimes a lot of English is not too necessary. You know, as simple as it can get, as understandable as it can get. You don't have to bring out all your big words. They know it. They evaluate the course. They've planned out your course. They know these things. So don't try to don't water down your experiences by using crazy words that don't make sense. Run it through your small sister. Ask, or your small brother. Run it through your colleague at work. Ask, "Do you understand what I'm saying? Like, what do you think I'm telling you?" Because if a layman understands it, who's not doing exactly what you're doing or not working with you, maybe your colleague was the wrong example, then this evaluator will follow through your work. So feel free to ask your questions now. I don't know whether we have much time for that, but you can also shoot me. Sam is also here to get your questions as well. Thanks.
So thank you very much, Rita, for sharing your story on the Commonwealth journey. Um, we are going to take questions, and so please listening for the questions. And also, um, my takeaway is that in your Commonwealth application, you need to tell one story, one coherent story that so whatever you write in one section feeds into the next section, and someone can see a complete applicant who knows they've done this, they want to go place Z, and to get there, this is what they need to do, and this is what their work experience is, and this is where they volunteered, and all of that contributes to telling that story. I also like the idea of telling a personal story, like making that personal statement really personal, because Commonwealth is also looking for people who have like go undergone barriers to be where they are. So they're kind of they give you that chance to talk about yourself. So if you went to school and you missed lunch and you want to discuss about food insecurity in your country, or you're applying to something like that, or like your country has issues to do with conflict and wars, and you want to apply for a cause in peace or of conflict resolution, and that was a big thing for you, then you can bring that also as part of your personal statement. Um, so we are waiting for your questions. We are going to take them, and thank you so much, Ritah, for making it so personal. And as I said last time, again, this is something very, I mean, you don't have to use the big words. And since the university plays a big role, if you didn't get a first class in whatever you're applying, then you need to show what you've done after that degree, because that's what now will make the admissions at that university select you. Remember, if you're applying for something like MA Global Development, then if 10 of you apply to the same uni and the university has like two slots, they'll rank the 10 of you, and the best two will be sent to Commonwealth Commission for selection. That's a very specific for every university. They have a number of slots. So if you also have, I don't know, Rita, for me, I applied for 6 universities and only one, I only got one, which was quite difficult because, again, I was coming from a finance field and I wanted to do stuff on international development and specifically food security. So, and I didn't have experience actually in in food security or working in agriculture sector. So it was my passion that really, and that means also the personal statement that you write, that is where you're supposed to write a personal statement to the uni, then that could also help you to show the passion that you have in applying to that course. So, do you have the first question for Rita? So, Rita, you have a question. How many schools do you apply to? And this is from Simon. And how did you manage? How did you manage all the applications, especially the references? So that's the first question. So how many schools did you apply to, and how did you manage the applications and the references? And then maybe we can move to the second question.
Okay. So I applied to two schools. That's it. I applied to the University of Edinburgh and I applied to University of Glasgow. But they had I was very keen on the geographical location in Scotland that I wanted to attend to go to. I mean to of the UK that I wanted to go to. I wanted to be based in Scotland. Um so that goes without saying that it was just Edinburgh or Glasgow and I chose those two I chose masters in international development. I chose masters in Africa and international development. And then I can't remember what they were calling it in Glasgow, but something very related. And those three in total were supported by 16 scholarships, which I all applied to.
Thank you very much, Rita. And what Rita is saying is that sometimes when you apply for a course, there are internal scholarships within the university. So, and sometimes when you get an admission, the university can reach out to you and say, by the way, we've seen you've gotten admission for this course. We actually have these scholarships. If you this is the link if you can apply. I've gotten that before because there are internal scholarship within the university. So even getting that admission is quite important. Rita, there was the second part of managing all the applications, especially the references. And before you go to that, maybe I can add and say, for me, references, and this is how my university professor taught me, even today when I need a reference, especially when I was applying for my PhD, is you write to them an email, and of course, you make sure you build relationships in uni and the people where you work, because those are the people you'll come back to and ask for references in future. So I used to send him my CV and tell him, dear XX, I'm applying for this and this and this, and I'm requested to have a reference or a recommendation. This is what they need. So, for example, some references will say we need to know how long you've known them, how whether their ability to communicate in English, that is right, written and spoken English. Things like they some discuss your leadership, especially If it's from the professional side, if it's an academic, then they need to discuss stuff that are related to academics. That's what I would say. So, and sometimes some professors cannot remember your grades. So you also need, if you did well, you can always like send your final transcript and say this is what they, and I'm applying for this course. Be very specific because every letter is specific. So if you're applying for, let's say, MA Global Development, and you did a course on development which is called a high grade, you can just tell them, please, you can highlight in your letter this course that I got an A in your in my reference letter. That's how you make their work easier, because you also need them to talk the language that the applications or the reviewers want to hear. So Rita, maybe you can add something on how you manage the application and the references before you go to the next step.
Yeah. So seeing as I was applying to only three courses, maybe it wasn't that hard. So the courses were out of the way. The scholarships, some were very specific, others were very varied. But once you get the hang of the first like three, then you'll manage it. It also helps that I do things way early. Like portal opens today, mine is in. And reason being, I had taken a year out to just evaluate myself. With my references, these were I just come out of a youth course that I was doing. So I had talked to the lady and said, I'm doing this course. And I mean, I'm applying for the scholarships and let's journey together. So my references were written almost a year in advance. And my referees, I made them part of my essay review committee. So they knew exactly what I was doing. So when it was crunch time, that's it. Everybody had the letters waiting. They just sent it. The ones that needed sending, they sent it. And I had been as kind as we'd meet up for coffee. I'd explain what I want to do, and we'd make duplicate letters addressing each uni and putting them in a folder and arranging it for them, so that when it's hit time, they'll ask me, okay, which one are we applying to? Commonwealth. So they were really part of my process, and I'm really thankful that I had that. But it's because I had a year to talk to them. No, I just didn't wake up one morning and say, I need a reference. Could you please do it in 2 weeks? Because their time was important as well. So that's how I'd say I'd managed my references.
Thank you very much, Rita. And that's a very important point of when you're applying the scholarship, you could actually share um, your application and say, this is what I'm applying for, this is what I've written.
Yeah.
So they might actually they might actually see that a reference needs to confirm those things you've written there, to confirm your abilities and ask you to complete the course. And this is something also I've tried. Like when I applied for my PhD, I sent my proposal to one of my referees. So he actually knew what I was applying for
Yeah.
and what my research interests were. So that also is a key point, that to accompany your request for references with your CV and also your application probably, for them to see and to show them that it is a different application from the last one. I mean, you need to have a way so that someone doesn't write an application or a reference letter that is for a different course other than what you're applying. I think someone has
Yeah.
asked whether they consider a 2-2 for this scholarship. And I think they would consider, because this is a selection based at the university, but then you need to show what you've done in those 4 years, because UK universities accept work experience as part of, like, if you got a second class lower, the work experience then can add onto that. So, for example, I've seen some courses that accept master students. If you got a lower, yes, but you have more experience than the other students who maybe
Yeah.
got a 2-1 or a first class. So maybe that one I can address at that level. But then the other one to Rita is, how do I include my trainings, certification, and courses, especially online, in the application?
I don't know what the form looks like now, unfortunately. I don't know whether they'll just ask you to list the academic, your academic credentials. So mine had asked me to list them, and I just listed all of them. But if you can, and on your trainings, try and include them. So not on your trainings, in the things that you're talking about. For instance, how is this course going to help you? like for instance to the school, you're going to say, okay, so far I've managed to do this course, but it cannot compare to the knowledge that I'm going to get from this place and the networks I'm going to get from this place, because these have been like probably independent online courses that just helped me get into the groove of how things work in this particular industry and to increase my knowledge. But the masters will be the complete package that will seal everything. So you can even still put them in the rest of the statements that you're writing.
Thank you. And maybe if I were to add anything there, I would say, since this is a complete application, you're preparing. Um, when you're writing your personal statement, for example, I didn't have any background in agriculture, but had attended forums, I had written articles for newspapers on agricultural policy. So you can bring them, and that's how now they see the passion. So they would say, yes, this guy is not trained in agriculture for his undergraduate studies, but he has passion for whatever he wants to do. Look at the places he's volunteering, look at the networks he's created. So that's how you kind of compensate for the things that you don't have in your academic credentials. You can bring them through the other trainings that you've done, or the kind of certifications that you've pursued. So the other question we have is, adding academic distinctions and prizes. Is it compulsory? I think that's a direct question. I mean, you're applying for an academic scholarship, so you need to show that you are the top cream. You are what they are looking for. So you didn't miss that. I mean, it would be, you'll be underselling yourself if you fail to include. But just to say this, and Rita, maybe before you add something on that, here we are not looking for things that you did in high school. So this is when you're applying for your masters, anything you did in high school, please, it shouldn't come anything. I mean, it can only come as as part of your personal story, but not when you're explaining your accomplishments. So saying you've been a leader or you volunteered in high school, no, no, no. Anything academic, talk about things you did in your undergraduate or maybe after you finished your undergraduate. Richard, you have a second to add something there.
Yeah, as long as you have done your, what's it called, your eligibility right, and you're eligible, then you have at least the basics, which you could reiterate.
Then the other question is whether you have to make a different application to the school after applying for Commonwealth Shared Scholarship. I would say some universities allow you, as you apply on through the online application system, they can just ask you whether you'd want to be considered for the Commonwealth scholarship, and that, just taking that is enough. But I also have seen other universities that require you to apply separately. So I think it's knowing about the school, knowing about the university. Remember, here it's the university that selects you, that nominates you to the Commonwealth Scholarship Commission. So, Rita, do you have anything to add there before we go to the last
Yeah,
question?
exactly. If I'm sponsoring you or I'm nominating you in that sense, I need to know whether you first got into our uni.
Thank you. Do you want to add? Sorry, I might have cut
No?
you short.
No, no, no,
Okay.
I'm all good. Brief as that.
Thank you very much. So, and we have a last question here, and if you have another one, you can still type on the chat. Is, must these references be submitted before 13th December as well? I don't know. I may not be aware of the application process right now because I just went through the questions. So these are the things that, I mean, when you're applying for a scholarship, I keep on challenging applicants. There are things that you should be able to get them directly from the website, and like knowing all that, because I mean we might tell you how ours was, because for us it was kind of different. They used to ask for references sometimes after you've been selected. Because I remember getting an email from University of Warwick saying they needed a reference by a certain date, but that was after the shortlisting. So, uh, so please comment on Tutu. I think I've already done. Uh, I've already done on the 2-2. I said you really need to show what you've done after getting that 2-2, like your passion within the 4 years experience that you have. Uh, what can you say that can compensate you getting a 2-2? And I'll say that there are universities that accept second class lower, as long as you can compensate that with significant work experience. So the question I was answering is about references, and we might not know exactly whether you need to submit them by 13th. So that's something you can check from the website. But I know they could have changed. But for us, we used to submit them at some point. Um, I think before June, the following year, just before selection. But see, even the cycle has changed because right now the deadline
Yeah.
is in actually
December.
3 weeks. So you only have 3 weeks to work on your application. So that means, and for us, we had until the following year, I guess, until was it March
Yeah.
or February or something like that. So um, can I include two courses in one application? Uh, I think for every application you need, for every course you're applying, you need a different application, even
Yes.
if those courses are at the same university. So that's basic because different courses. I mean, it's um, when you're applying for scholarships, don't use the same documents, especially the personal statements. You need to change them. You need to tweak them. Applying for MSc food security at the University of Reading and applying for MSc agriculture and development at the same university really they need to be different in one way or the other. So you can't really use those documents as when they're the same. So Rita, you're being asked whether references for the scholarship is after nomination. That has been answered by an applicant. Yes, once you've been nominated by the uni, you'll be asked for the references, but it's good to notify them you've applied. Notify your references. So Rita, you're being asked whether you have to do IELTS exam during your application.
Yes, I did, but not for, it's not a requirement of the Commonwealth, but then the Commonwealth expects you to comply with your school regulations, where my school expected an IELTS exam.
I don't know about Commonwealth right now, but Chevening has done away with the English language requirement. So it's no longer required. For the uni, then they also accept high school, most high school exams in Africa, especially if you did them in English. I know in Africa, I got exempted by most universities, although my KCSE or my high school exam had been done uh, earlier on. I mean, it had expired, but you can write an exemption letter. But it's something that you need to research very well before you write it. You can actually ask someone to help you write it. Um, to ask for that, to request for that exemption, because if you write it in the wrong way or if you use kind of wrong grammar, then they would not be able even to exempt you for it. So I know they accept West African certificate, whatever it's called. For for us, it's called the Kenya Certificate of Secondary Education. They accept, but they accept a certain grade, which is kind of like 50 something percent, which is a C or a C plus something. I can't remember the exact grade, but they do accept it. So remember, you meet the English language requirement for the scholarship and for the uni. But I don't know, and please, because Chevening and Commonwealth are under the Commonwealth Scholarship Commission, so or what they call the FCDO, the Foreign and Commonwealth Development Office of the United Kingdom. They've removed those requirements, so I don't know whether I doubt they would remove it for Chevening and leave it for Commonwealth. So what you have to work around is meeting the English proficiency for the uni, of which you
Yep.
have time, because if you apply right now, you'll get a conditional offer and they will tell you now these are the requirements, these are the conditions. If they list the English proficiency test as a requirement, then you can actually now think of requesting for an exemption, or maybe thinking of what kind of exam you can do to meet that requirement. Um, the other question, this is again, um, does the personal statement have to be in line with your prospective course? Um, hmm. it would add an advantage. So if you're writing something about gender, and if you want to apply for something on gender, and in your family you experience discrimination just because you're a girl, or you couldn't access, maybe your brothers were treated differently, like they could go to high school and you were told to remain and cook for the family when they were doing their homework, then that would be okay. But I mean, I wouldn't say you have to force everything. Uh, so sometimes if it's not there, it's not there. So I think it would be important if it's possible to connect your personal statement to whatever you're applying. As Rita was saying, um, access to healthcare and health insurance as a personal story, as her personal story, and connecting it to what she wanted to do in the future. So then that makes a big plus for the application. Rita, do you want to add something on that?
Mm, yeah, I think sometimes when you analyze your life and your experiences, you'll find something that adds up. Don't be so hell bent on one example that tells the story that you want but doesn't marry with the course. Because you're speaking to people who are trying to see how their course is going to help you. I think it's very important to be able to align those two.
Yeah. And maybe as a first step, you can list all the things that are relevant. You can try and reflect on your personal story and see what you could use. And maybe, as Rita said, you could run your ideas through people. Like you could ask. Sometimes I mean, I had so much to write on leadership that I had to ask my friends, what do you think is what, because you might not know everything. Like someone will tell me, but I think you doing this was something is ranks higher than A ranks higher than B. So because your friends might be able, I mean, to view from they're external, so they're able to view you from a different angle the way you see yourself. So running your ideas through people would be helpful for that. Um, I want to go to the next question, and the question is, can one submit several applications, different programs? Say one application for an MBA, another one for renewable energy. You're applying to the uni, so you can make as many applications as possible. And for example, for those people applying for development courses, I think there are so many, and some of them are also in different themes.
Yeah.
Then you need to refer to the theme in your application. That is development impact statement. So um, I applied to like 6 universities. Courses they were ranging from agriculture, food security, um, but then some of them were under science and technology, because like MSc food security at University of Warwick was more of biotech in agriculture, but some courses in agriculture like Nottingham Forest were more of, so not Nottingham Forest. I'm talking about football clubs. Nottingham Trent University. It was more of a socioeconomic uh, course on food security. So the courses were relevant, but they were in different themes. So that means making two separate applications to every uni and changing your application to suit what you're applying for. Um, so to Rita, I heard in Scotland, part of UK, it's much easier to receive or get scholarship nominations. Is it right?
I wish. Yeah, I don't think that's the case just because some of the unis in Scotland are one of the most highly ranked in the UK. So the competition is quite as stiff. Yeah.
What I would say is some universities have more slots than others, or some courses. So if you can be able to, some universities actually advertise the application separately. Like I saw University of Stirling, which is also in Scotland.
Scotland.
They were saying they had 6 courses. They have 6 slots for Commonwealth shared in a certain course. Uh, so then that means you already know you're competing for 6. So you only need to be part of the 6 best they're looking for. So that's something that you might need to think of. Um, One thing that applicants don't do a lot is to start speaking to the lecturers and the professors. during the application, build a relationship. If you have a question about the modules, talk to them, write an email, and maybe that again might also be part of uh, showing you're passionate about the course. So, but again, if you have to communicate to ask them anything, don't ask stuff that is so simple that you can just get from the website. Ask for something that shows, just like we say in interviews, ask smart questions. You can also ask professors questions or the program directors. Let them know you before even you get that. When they read that application, they already know I've had a conversation with this person. So someone is
Yeah.
asking whether
Sorry,
in the
maybe to cut you short some.
Okay, thank you.
The evaluators at the uni level are not your lecturers. So it might not, that's more on the PhD side than it would be on the master's application. So yeah, when you get to class, maybe the lecturer will know you. But if you don't make it to that class, if you don't get the funding that allows you to get into that class, then probably not.
Just to clarify, Rita, if you like when you applied for MSc Africa and International Development at the University of Edinburgh, my guess is that the program director, that's the head of the course, uh, reads the application, plus maybe the, the postgraduate admissions office or the postgraduate
The
admissions. Just make sure that you've met the eligibility basic. But in terms of the content of what you're writing, it's read by maybe the program director.
Still, the Commonwealth scholarship is much more competitive than getting into the uni itself. So if we're grading it by getting into the uni, then the skills are you can well, mangoes, oranges, very different things. Second thing is that from my experience with Edinburgh, from my experience with Glasgow, the program directors who assess that are the current ones. But by the time you're going to school, the program director is different. So, bado, different things.
Okay. The last one is um, whether at the portal again, or whether on the portal you actually make different applications for the various schools. Uh, and if I can remember right, yes, in the portal, for every application, for every course you're applying for, you actually, because you can download every once you complete the application. In 2018, when I was applying, you could actually download the whole application as PDF and see. So that means uh, from the portal, you create the same account, but the account allows you to apply to different universities in the application. So yeah, you use different applications on the portal too. That was our last question. So I'll give this 1 minute to Rita to wrap up and maybe um, say whatever. Well, I mean the conclusion.
Yeah. I think I said all I could. So just good luck with your application.
Thank you, Rita, and thank you for everyone for joining. And all the best in your applications. If you have any, Rita gave out her LinkedIn handle, and mine is already on the channel. So if you can reach out in time, please do not send your essays for review 2 days before the deadline. That's again something that, because people have other things they're doing, they have work, they have schoolwork and all that. So send them early, and so that they may be able to be of help to you. All the best in your applications, and thank you, and have a great evening, great afternoon wherever you are joining from. Bye.